We're here for another edition of the Outlook series, and I'm your host, Mike Lippis. Application development organizations exhaust resources on a multitude of siloed point function tools encompassing requirements management, testing, tracking, and more. But are you getting the most value out of these investments? Are you working with a consolidated picture or just the pieces of a puzzle? Integrating the tools in your software engineering environment can drive substantial savings in time and effort and ensure consistent quality. To deliver enhanced value to your customer, select a solution that provides greater synchronization between IT and your business. Now joining us to discuss integrated ALM is Bipin Shah. Bipin is the CEO of Kovair Software. Bipin Shah, welcome to the Outlook series.
Thank you.
Hey, now, Bipin, so is lack of visibility into the day-to-day activities in application development a problem?
Of course it's a problem. It's a big problem. When you're using, disparate, non-integrated tools, it leads to several challenges in terms of data visibility, traceability, process automation, and cross-tool reporting. So lack of visibility leads to process inefficiency, repetition of manual tasks, unwanted errors, and as a result, the productivity loss and, all these lead to a delivery delay.
Now, when it comes to enacting best practice processes, what is the role of an interconnected set of tools?
I guess the main theme of today's application development is to reduce the time to market, right? So in order to achieve this, everyone is moving to continuous integration or CI. The suggested best practices in this are, maintenance of code repository, automating the build against each commit, and then self-testing done through the test automation, making the latest deliverable easily available, doing an automated deployment. So all these best practices can only be achieved smoothly when you have seamless integration between these tools. And so without this integration, there'll be too many manual steps, and not only they'll delay the delivery, but you're not really achieving what you're talking, best practice in that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now, how can integrated ALM help overcome the challenges that are associated with globally distributed development?
So today, almost all large organizations, have very global development, and they involve multiple teams, working from different locations. And also sometimes it's found that two partner companies working together work on two different sets of tools, like two requirements management tools or two different source code management tools, etc. So the challenge for such a company is to have, to be able to accommodate these different cultures and tools, and on the other hand, remain connected so that, work is not duplicated and productivity is not lost. Mm-hmm. So when you integrate your ALM tools, including these different tools, let's say for the same function, these companies can overcome this challenge. And, it helps you answer a question like, how do you gain visibility into your development process in Israel, doing test activities in India, for example, and delivery process in Silicon Valley, and making all this happen 24/7. So for these purposes, integrated ALM data can be shared by people, using different lifecycle tools, and they're behind the firewall in each location. and ensure a good project outcome, on time and delivered on budget.
All right. Now, Bipin, can integrated ALM enhance collaboration between stakeholders?
Yes, absolutely. So there are threefold problems of collaboration, between stakeholders, particularly when you talk from the perspective of globally distributed teams like we just did, right? And there are reduced opportunities for synchronous communication. There's hardly face-to-face meetings, and there are also cultural or language misunderstandings. So when you have a web-based integrated ALM environment, it basically eases all of the above factors and facilitates, a much better collaboration, and also reduces the personal interaction needs between the stakeholders that are far away from each other.
Mm-hmm. Now, in what ways can individual and team productivity be increased by connecting tools?
So individual productivity, is increased by means of integration, so that when you integrate all the tools, all the relevant data and information access is right at your computer. So the developer doesn't have to rely on unconventional methods to communicate, with the peers. By means of integration, developer may get insight to any ALM tool without having to leave his or her ID environment. So they keep working in their environment with access to all the relevant information they need. And this ensures a definite increase in productivity of the individuals, because he or she is not wasting valuable time hopping around separate tools, and is able to provide undivided attention to the task on hand. And simultaneously, it also improves team productivity, because team productivity is nothing but a combination of individual productivity. Mm-hmm. So we definitely feel that, integrated ALM achieves much higher level of productivity.
Okay. Now, is it possible to break down this developer-customer barrier that's out there?
Again, the answer is yes. And, if you read the literature today, DevOps is the buzzword in the industry, has become an absolute necessity because of that, to break this developer-customer barrier. So there were days when developers were, shielded from the customer. Today, however, with integrated, DevOps in place, a developer has constant access of the real-time updates that help this person is making, based on his or her interaction with the customer. For example, a help desk person had logged a change request in Remedy, say, or ServiceNow, and based on the request made by the customer, right? So the integration ensures that change request is instantaneously, delivered to the developer, and the developer starts working on it. It may go through a tool like Rally, for example, where a user story is created based on that requirement. And, once the developer is done with the work, it gets updated again through service management tools, and the customer is informed. So you created this very close link between the developer and the customer through the service desk environment, which was not possible if these things were not integrated.
Now, what direct and indirect influences does integrated ALM have on overall quality?
So let me answer this way. First of all, it improves quality by defect minimization because of, say, if it was due to miscommunication, if there were inconsistencies, between the requirements, and by enabling effective or efficient testing between the requirements and the test case, right? So integrated ALM, really ensures code quality and performance throughout the entire lifecycle process, right? So quality of work is validated at every stage, and defects are identified during the process instead of at the very end, right? Also, integrated ALM enforces and automates quality verification process like, the code analysis, unit testing, code coverage, continuous build validation. And once again here, we're talking about all these tools being tied together so that it's not a broken process.
Mm-hmm. Now, can integrated ALM impact the collection of actionable metrics and intelligence?
The answer is unequivocal yes. So, actionable metrics and intelligence are typically the two major factors that can be achieved through Kovair's integrated ALM solution, right? It basically eliminates the need for stakeholders to gather the metrics manually over meetings or emails. Stakeholders can view all the necessary metrics live in the application through reports and dashboards. And by the way, a lot of our dashboards are, you can click through real time for drill down information. The integrated ALM environment gathers relevant data because of we have the data repository where different tools are providing data on a real-time basis. And so all the stakeholders can have their own unique dashboards or reports to get these metrics real-time.
Now, turning to change management, how can all stakeholders be kept in sync?
Okay, so the most important factor for implementing a change is to do impact analysis. Now, so decisions for implementation or rejection of a change is highly dependent on this impact analysis, right? And what impact the change will have on all the artifacts of the project. And impact analysis can be very complex, based on various scenarios. So what Kovair has done is to keep it very simple by figuring out all the probable impacts using relationships between records. Stakeholders can do a proactive impact analysis for, any new change and then take a decision for the change. So our web-based integrated platform keeps all the stakeholders in sync and allows each other to view this impact analysis real time before, making the change decision final.
I see. Now, when it comes to end-to-end ALM, how can a plug-and-play tool capability increase ROI and process improvement?
So I'll have to give you a few points on this. So when you look at some of the major advantages of plug-and-play capability that an enterprise service bus type of integration provides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, it's easy to expand an enlarged, integrated tool system right away. Okay. All that actually one needs to do is to incorporate the new tool into the infrastructure by hooking it up to the bus through our connector, which we also call the adapter. So a tool adapter getting directly hooked up to the ecosystem almost instantaneously. Then it's also very highly scalable and distributable, right? So unlike other architecture, this type of functionality can easily be dispersed also across a geographically distributed network as needed, right? So, for example, what I mean by that is that every location doesn't have to have the same identical infrastructure, right? Where testing is being done, you have the limited tool sets that they need. Where development is being done, they have their own tool sets, etc. But all these are plugged in together, and so you have a very large ecosystem, but it is at separate locations, and people are continuing to use their existing tools while plugging into the overall system, right? And this allows for incremental adoption also. And the large number of modular components, offer the flexibility that allows further incremental adoption of architecture as the resources become available. So all of this, of course, leads to a higher ROI on your tool investment. And sometimes we say that, the tools that you thought were obsolete or incapable of working in your current environment all of a sudden become useful because you say, I'm only going to do this limited function and then integrate it to my entire ecosystem and enhance the life of the tool, thereby again enhancing the ROI.
Alrighty.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah,
that's how we see it.
I see. Now, what is the difference between bus or hub versus point-to-point integrations?
Yeah, this has been a long debate because people think it's easy to, just interconnect two tools and move on, right? I think when you have large number of tools to integrate, right, the bus or the hub-based integration helps in removing complexity of point-to-point integration, right? When you do point-to-point integration, you face a complex environment, the single point of failure, there's generally higher maintenance cost, there's lack of flexibility, lack of scalability, and most of the time excessive custom coding, right? So if you go away from that onto this bus or, omnibus type of architecture, you're pointing all your applications or tools to a central hub. And that results in a much simpler environment which increases not only reliability but decreases maintenance costs, right? So that's how I would describe the difference.
Now, how does Kovair's Omnibus for integrated ALM work?
So as we said, Omnibus is, based on the SOA service-oriented architecture technology. So Omnibus offers an open and seamless integration framework, first of all. And it is a proprietary thing that we have developed, and so based on that fact, we have tailored to have all the essential ALM services like collaboration, traceability, process automation, security, reporting, analytics. It's all built into the Omnibus platform. And that's why it helps enterprises, make lifecycle tools active participants in the entire ALM process as part of a service-oriented architecture. Okay? Now, if I go a little more into the details, the Omnibus engine acts like the bus, which is mainly responsible for collecting the events from connected tools, processing those, and finally doing the necessary actions on the target tools, right? Since we have multiple tools connected, so it may collect instructions from one tool that are to be delivered to the other tool and so on. So that all happens with Omnibus. And as I said, each tool has its own adapter or connector that's tied to the Omnibus. And by the way, these are very simple adapters because we do not build in any business rules into those. The users define their own business rules. So even in a same company, two different groups using the same adapter could have their own business rules that they, provide for different projects, for example. So it's a very flexible type of architecture, and there's action mapping between the source and target tools that's defined, prior to starting your work. Mm-hmm. So without going into too much detail, I think this will give the listeners a overall highlight of how the Omnibus works.
I see. Now, what kind of developer productivity can Kovair deliver?
Obviously, it will vary from, company to company, depending on where they are on their maturity model for the ALM process, right? But I think our plugin capabilities gives the developer much needed visibility into all the different ALM tools that they have to know about. And they can do that directly through their ID environment, right? So developers are mostly working in the ID environment, whether it's Visual Studio or Eclipse or whatever else. And through the connectors or plugins, they're able to look at all the necessary information they need in other tools. And by the way, a reverse way of putting this is also they can be prevented from going into tools that they don't need to go into. Okay? So the integration has that capability of, where can a user go? So with that little digression, so they don't need to go through emails or phone calls to find out a lot of the details, right? So from their perspective, monitoring of the development activity becomes easy. Mm-hmm. And based on that, they can focus more of their effort on the true development and coding activity rather than a lot of the overhead. And that's how we feel that the developer productivity increases. I mean, numbers vary, but we have, experience at various customers anywhere from 15 to 20% type of productivity enhancement of the developers.
Ah. So now, what can you tell the Outlook series audience about quality gains and defect reductions? What can you deliver in those areas?
Okay, so as we have discussed till now, Kovair's integrated ALM solution, helps the project teams to view real-time status and progress of the release, irrespective of which tool holds the data, right? And because of this, it results in early error detection, which obviously means improved quality, and to a significant magnitude, I would say. In one of our biggest implementations, the feedback that we received from the customer, that there's been a reduction of 19 to 20% in the post-deployment defects, because, the real proof of the pudding is in, what do the users think of the quality, right? So that's why we're talking about post-deployment defects, right? In about 6 months after implementing, like Kovair type of integrated ALM. So that's the real quantification that we know of.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you put a number on the time saved from meetings, phone calls, and travel?
Yeah, it's not easy to estimate because, different companies have different locations and so on. However, let me give you some general input, Mm-hmm. There was a research conducted by the Annenberg School of Communication at UCLA, and also Minnesota's, Training and Development Research Center. So it says that executives spend anywhere from 40 to 50% of the time in meetings. Now, this of course doesn't happen at the developer level, but there are a lot of meetings held due to, for getting the status or getting updates or whatever. And, about 50% of these meetings are also unproductive. They're not always efficient, right? So with our web-based integrated ALM, the need for these lengthy meetings goes away, because you typically have meetings to say, hey, tell me the status of this, tell me the update on this, etc., right? And for example, once a morning meeting, once in the morning for a Scrum type meeting is fine. But during the rest of the day, if a developer is getting all the information within the tool without going anywhere, without sending any emails, without making any phone calls, that is all saved time. And if you say, okay, if you're saving like even half an hour a day, you can calculate your own productivity. Half an hour out of 8 hours a day is a significant time saved.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of time to market benefits can be achieved here?
Okay, so reducing time to market for new features, new products. The organizations are leveraging a variety of so-called modern development practices, right? Agile, continuous integration, continuous delivery, etc. Now, with the help of our omnibus, we can integrate all these different tools for CI or for, CD, irrespective of the vendor and technology, right? So this way, our integrated platform contributes very well towards the need of the organization to reduce the time to market, right? So in, again, one of our large implementations, this was quantified in the way the number of releases occurred after the integration was implemented and effective, right? So the input is that it increased the releases by 50% over 1 year, right? So basically, you're doing 1.5 times the number of releases, and this is a very early stage. It's just the first year, right? So this can go up further, but at least a 50% improvement in releases is a significant improvement.
Yeah, definitely. Turning to tools licenses, can they be reduced?
The answer is yes in general, but I don't want to overemphasize this because that's not our real purpose in trying to, promote integration. But the answer is yes, and tell you how and how it gets done, right? So with the greater visibility of all the individuals across this integrated tool environment, right? The stakeholders can view data of one tool from the other through the Omnibus data repository or through, the linking through IDs. And so they stay in their preferred tool environment, don't need to log into each other's tools, and that in itself reduces the number of licenses that a corporation may need to procure, so that these licenses or the license numbers are confined to the actual users for that functionality and not for any other overhead. Okay? Did I answer that?
Yeah, very clear. Now, okay. Can you share a use case with the Outlook series audience?
Yeah, let me go back to the current buzzword in the industry of DevOps, right? So let's assume that the operations team of a company is using Remedy or ServiceNow. We don't, promote one versus the other. Once a change request is submitted in Remedy instance, for example, it immediately gets reflected in the user story artifact, for example, Rally, if that's what they're using for the Agile. And the Rally instance being used by the developer, is able to see that immediately. And then once the developer completes his or her development and updates the Rally user story, instantly it gets updated in the Remedy change request. And so the person who is interfacing with the customer is able to notify the customer immediately. And this is a simple use case, but for the purpose of this, interview, don't want to go into a very long use case that, gets complicated. But this is a simple example of basically a 2 or 3 tool integration scenario. We can extend that to testing, once the Rally user story, once the development is done, how it gets tested, and even the test tool can be connected to the person managing a Remedy to give them the test case execution update, etc. Okay.
Okay. So, Bipin, would you like to add anything to our discussion before we wrap up for today?
I think you've covered the territory pretty well. You have had an extensive list of questions. So the only thing I'd say as part of a wrap-up is that Kovair is a one-stop shop for all your application lifecycle management goals. All right? So I'd like the audience to feel free to get in touch with us for their specific use cases. And based on our easy, mouse click configurability, by the way, Kovair does not need any code writing in doing any, customization or configuration for a user's use case or a need. All right. So we can try and deliver that very, very quickly and show you appropriate demos and take it further from there.
All right. Now, where can the Outlook Series audience get more information about the Kovair integrated ALM solution?
I think the biggest source of information is our website, www.kovair.com, right? I'd say we have a very extensive amount of literature. I call it significant amount of literature, product literature, case studies, blogs. Everything relevant is on our website. And so they can go to the website or write directly to, sales@kovair.com.
Great. Well, Bipin, hey, I appreciate you joining us here today, and I wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors there at Kovair Software and your integrated ALM activities.
So, Michael, thank you, and thanks for raising all these very good questions, and I hope that my answers will help people in the business to, assess their integration needs properly.
Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to log on to the Outlook Series site for your business and technology news.